4,000 of them wait.
Yeah, I know.
All have
They're all
questions about
knocking,
pickleball.
got answer in the door.
Yeah. They all have questions about pickleball. Mr. Berskevich, liaison to the park board.
Good.
We're good?
Mhm.
Okay, we're gonna start with the flag. On the New York State flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes from our March 17th town board meeting, please.
I move those, John.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Berskevich. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Berskevich.
Aye.
Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
9 and 9. Carried. Okay, we have our, next up, we have our Lakeport site for New Air, the lease. That is the one next to the equalization tank. They're the ones doing the drill work for traffic and that kind of thing. So it's just the lease that we've had with them. We just have to renew it, so I need a motion for that, please.
So moved, Jim.
Motion by Mr. Berskevich, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Berskevich.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Carried. Okay, next we have our Air Force lease agreement. That is the back 3 acres next to Volchansky's old shop back in the corner. They're looking to put up a temporary radar there. That is a defense, that will be a defense installation. And we have that in front of us. John, do you want to just kind of go over it briefly for everybody?
I want to mention that right now, the lease is actually with the Development Corporation. We're in the process of folding that and closing that up, and then you guys can take over. I had a few questions left over for the representatives from the Air Force, Air National Guard. They've changed, this will be the third person I've dealt with. I did have some questions about indemnification on it. They're going to get back to me on that. So it's going to be up to you, John, and the board, what you want to do with this. My recommendation is you forward it over to the Development Corporation to sign off on it. They did change the amounts that we talked about.
But we disbanded the Development Corporation, so what do we got to do? We just have them.
Yeah, we got to have them look at this and say they're okay with it, and then they'll get assigned to you guys afterwards.
Okay.
I've been in contact with these folks. They know this.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're gonna have to schedule a meeting with the Development Corporation next couple of weeks. All right. We're good, so we'll take away. Anybody have any questions on it?
I think we've looked it over real well, John. They're bonded.
Well, that's
United
part.
States government.
I
That's
know.
part of the issues is that they're.
The camera plugged in?
The U.S. government will not indemnify anybody, whether it's a town or anybody else. So I'm working my way through how they will make us whole if something were to happen. It's their fault. So they're talking to their upper level attorneys right now.
And then if they decommission it, they will take their place home.
Oh, yeah.
That's all in there.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Correct. That's a good question.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions on that? Everybody good? Okay, next we have our copier lease. We need approval for our copier lease. Beth is working with Toshiba, and she also looked at, what was the other company we looked at?
Usherwood?
Usherwood. They're in the county, and you get 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You're very limited on who you can go to. So we decided to renew with Toshiba. Is there any questions on this?
There was, Beth negotiated a significant reduction in where it started. They basically.
$458 less than what we are paying now.
And then
This
they
week.
agreed to a lot of the changes that I had recommended
Correct.
after quite a bit of
Correct.
negotiation. So I think you guys are going to save some money on this one.
Good.
I don't know. I think we're gonna get the toner cartridges that I've been riding around in the Suez Canal for 6 or 8 months. There'll be one solid blob when we get them or something. That's how it's saving money. So, all right, any other questions on this? Any motion, please?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second. Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Bruskevich. Aye. Mr. Ranger. Aye. I'm an aye. Carried. Okay. Next, we have our loan resolution for USDA RD Hamilton Brown Bushnell Shore Road. That is in your second folder, which you have. Before we do that, if you need to fill out, there's a compliance review questions. We'll go over these. Each one of you has to fill this out. I have all 5 of them, correct, Beth?
I think everybody's got one in the beginning of their packet. You have extras in case they needed to. But if everybody fills them out, signs them, initial them, John will collect them and I'll take them back and get them to RD.
Okay, name of the facility is Town of Sullivan Town Building, right?
Just Town of Sullivan, he put it there, yeah.
All right, question number 1, how did you find out about this board to become a member? Fill it in. When you're ready to go on to the next one. Ready for number 2? Number 2, how long have you served on this board? I want to see anybody take their shoes off now. Okay, number 3, does the board routinely advertise and make public announcements or perform community outreach regarding vacant positions? We always advertise them on our Facebook page and our website.
They're also always usually in the town office in the newspaper.
If they are civil service, the clerk usually gets a copy of them and they post them on the board. Our vacant positions filled.
Strictly
Town board, yeah, board action. Are you aware of the civil rights laws that this program operates under? Do you know who is financing this project? Yes. 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 How is this facility viewed by the community? Good. They've been asking for water for 30 years, so it is a good thing for this. Has the board ever received any discrimination complaints regarding this facility? Okay, and you can sign it, address it, put your title on there. Okay, so here these are best here. Okay, next we need a motion to post this in the newspaper, correct?
So move.
A motion by Jeff Martin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion? Okay. There's a lot of hoops to jump through with this. It's not like it used to be. We'll get it all filled out. This is for the grant low interest loan for USDA.
So this loan resolution, we'll just get that signed, get it over to them and go from there. Okay, you good with that?
What's that?
This piece? We'll get that signed and afterwards we'll reflect it in the minutes. We accepted the loan
Yeah.
resolution
Miscellaneous
for
payment
ID.
enrollment? No, that's not it.
Says loan resolution, It's towards the back. public bodies. And then Lang will look at it and then we'll go from
Yeah, I
there.
gotta do the opinion of
So
council.
for
Yeah.
rights of way, so what does that exactly mean? Do we gotta go out and get rights of way for
Yeah,
everybody?
you got about, what do we think, about 20
Yeah,
rights of way, but.
At the
so-
most.
So, the Donald's people would draw those up, and then we gotta contact and go out.
well, I thought that would be a good thing for, not volunteering for a stranger to go around.
Yeah.
It'd be a good way to meet 20 people. Unless you want us to do it.
So, but we gotta.
No, that's no problem. I figured the town board should do it anyways.
We gotta deliver the legal instrument for the easements for you to bring out, but if you wanna meet with the people, tell them you're coming, that's fine. And that's fine.
I figured we would go door to door.
But I can't sign an opinion until we know we have them.
All right, so I need a motion to be able to sign this loan resolution, so I need a motion, please.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Bruskevich, second. Second by Mr. Ranger. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Ranger, Mr. Bruskevich.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Carry. Okay, we're good on that, correct?
Would that potentially be a fall project or no? Water?
Yeah, hope it. Waiting for the comptroller to get back to us.
No. Yeah, we're good.
Already got it.
We're good on that. Okay, so we gotta get the easements, and then the next hoop is putting it out to bid, because bids are coming in higher than everybody figured. Right, Taylor?
Second year up. So are we, what are the odds, Taylor, that we have to go back and ask for another comptroller?
He didn't do this one, so he's not gonna.
Oh.
I don't know the budget. I mean, generally, we're seeing like 10% increase from last year. I don't know what the budget shows, if that's accounted for or not.
What are the odds? You better go down to the casino, see if they have this
Yeah.
Hamilton Brown Bush Shore Road on the board and then bet on it. So. Yeah, it's not good. Okay, next, Bartlett Judas is here. We're gonna talk about, Salt Springs Road, Sleepy Hollow Water, and we have an agreement, let's get this out of the way, to have them do our MS4 stormwater. We usually have them do it every year, so I need a motion for that, please. They're gonna do it for $2,800.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Bruskevich,
Yes.
Mr. Rader. Aye. Mr. Martin.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Carried. Okay, we can take this right back. Take a little bit, yeah, that's all done.
Okay, thank you.
All right, floor's all yours. Go ahead.
Thanks for having us tonight. We want to talk about the, I guess what I'll say, rejuvenated Salt Springs Joint Water Project, as well as Sleepy Hollow update. For those on Zoom or YouTube, I'm Taylor Bochar with Department of Judas Engineers. Also here with my coworker, Olivia Hickman. So what we wanted to cover today, our presentation outlined here, project history. As this board certainly knows, it is quite extensive. recent and anticipated progress, what has changed since we last talked about this a few years ago. Why is Sullivan still interested in pursuing this project? We'll go over the project summary. There has been a few changes and tweaks. Of course, we've updated our costs and our funding scenarios, project schedule, next steps. And then at the end, I'll go over Sleepy Hollow, provide an update as to where we stand and what's coming this summer. Go over the questions in our answers, and then any discussions or questions at the end. So I tried to condense this project history into a few bullet points. I know it goes back further than 2015, but I'll just pick up there. As this board knows very well, Sleepy Hollow Water District had some dire needs for a solution to their system. And what we had looked to do was put together a project that would bring aqua water to that system. That would be required to come from Manlius and kind of connect the dots, form a loop between North Eagle Village Road and Chittenango. We did an engineering report. We secured grant funding. We went as far as this board, forming the district with Article 12A, subject to permissive referendum. That referendum was forced and the project was voted on, and it was voted down by a few votes. Since that time, we kind of fell back to what I'll call the original Sleepy Hollow Water Project. Again, just to recap, that is just serving the Sleepy Hollow Water District. We're bringing aqua water, from the village of Chittenango, and we're just doing a small little extension. Unfortunately, that system is one that Aqua is not willing to, take over via lease agreement. So they won't be doing the operation and maintenance like they normally would. That does require the town on behalf of the district to do that O&M and have a certified water operator. Fortunately, that system does not provide fire protection, but it does solve the issue with the water quality with the groundwater source they have. And then kind of a rejuvenated Salt Springs project. This came back up last year in 2020. The town of Manlius actually issued a RFP, soliciting proposals for engineering services for project development of their project, and that's where we started to kind of go back through a very similar process that we did a few years ago. And I'll go into some of those details. So starting out from last year, 2020, June 2020, this first bullet point, we were retained by the town of Manlius as well as the town of Sullivan for what we're calling, planning and project development services of Salt Springs water. It is rehashing a lot of things that we've done a few years ago, again with a few changes. Last fall we focused a lot on community outreach. That was interest surveys on some potential additional areas. And on the Manlius side of things, we have a active project website. I think it's saltspringswaterproject.com that anybody can go and check out. There was an open public comment period for about a month in the fall. Since then, just this spring, we completed a new and revised preliminary engineering report and a map and plan which is needed for the Sky Ridge Water District improvements, which is an existing district in the town of Manlius. Just last month, we did have the town of Manlius initiate the environmental review process on their end at Seeker. They did schedule a public hearing for that, what we call a 202B, a section 202B process for improvements to an existing district. That public hearing is scheduled for April 14th. We also are in the process of drafting map planner reports for the proposed Salt Springs districts in both Manlius and Sullivan. That map planner report, I know this board knows what that is. That's really your kind of engineering legal document that provides the district boundary, the cost, the plan of finance, what you use to form a district. And I'll go kind of circle back to the next steps from there later on in the presentation. But before I get to that, I wanted to focus on what has changed, particularly on the town of Sullivan side of things, folks might be wondering if this got voted down a few years ago, why are we doing this again? We did revise the district, particularly excluding Sky Ridge Road, as it seemed like that was the most vocal area of opposition. With the town of Manlius on board, in this cycle, unfortunately, we didn't have the same type of joint approach last time. We think that with a joint project, we're really hoping to get to this state of shovel readiness so that we could apply for grants, hopefully bring the project costs down, make it favorable for everybody. To do that, you do have to form your district. You have to go through the environmental review process. You have to do your bond resolutions. You have to have an intermunicipal agreement all executed before you can even apply. So that's really our focus right now, is to try to get all those things in place. There's a lot of talk of funding, stimulus, whatever that might be, and we want to be ready to benefit from that if it is available. So why does this benefit Sullivan? I think the big thing is, I mentioned earlier, that Sleepy Hollow system, unfortunately, Aqua will not operate and maintain that. So if we were able to get the Salt Springs project to move forward, certainly that will help those folks along Salt Springs Road and give them access to water. But it also would help Sleepy Hollow because we've set that system up to be kind of meeting Aqua's requirements, so that we can actually just make a connection, and that system is more or less Aqua ready if we can get that line down Salt Springs. So if that was the case, we would look to try to lease the Sleepy Hollow system to Aqua as well as the Salt Springs system. It's really nice on the operation and maintenance side of things. There's a lot of Aqua water in the town of Sullivan. You guys, understand what that is. When you become part of the Aqua system, if there's let's just say a water main break within your district, you're not paying all the expenses for that. It's really, those costs are shared across Aqua's entire system. It's paid for through your water rates. It really reduces the long-term O&M costs. And then, of course, an important benefit from that is we can get fire protection from this larger system. I know this map is going to be difficult to see, but I'll just kind of talk through it. It's pretty much the same system that we had looked at a few years back, with the addition of having a Manlius district, or I should say districts, participating. So on this side here is North Eagle Village Road. On the far right side is the village of Chittenango. Sleepy Hollow is, of course, on that far right side. There's the existing district, and town of Manly is kind of in the middle of the map. That's the Sky Ridge Water District. They have their own groundwater source, a couple wells, a couple booster pump stations, a small tank. A lot of that infrastructure is pushing 50 years old. There's been a few minor improvements to the pumps, things like that, but it's really getting to its useful life. They need a solution as well. So what we look to do is to tie into the existing Aqua tank that's off of North Eagle Village Road, put in a booster pump station that would then pump to a new water storage tank, generally in the middle of Salt Springs Road. We have about 178,000 gallon tank. That volume is really driven by the fire protection requirement, not by additional capacity or future capacity. And it's really this new tank that would provide the fire flow and pressure across the whole system. And if we got that transmission line to go through, we can actually connect it back into Sleepy Hollow, kind of closing the loop there and forming the system. So just a description, kind of what I just talked through on the map. Includes 2 Aqua connections, a looping system. This is what Aqua has, really required, of this system for them to take it over. Of course, on North Eagle Village Road and Sleepy Hollow, new booster pump station, water storage tank, about 31,000 feet of 8-inch ductile iron water main, valves and hydrants, and then individual water services would be installed and provided to the right-of-way boundary with a shut-off valve right there. You guys might recall our estimate from, let's say, 2015. It's gone up.
That was 5.6 or 6.2.
Yes, I think we were around 6.2 with the services and maintenance. What we have.
Yes,
So you
$3
can
million in grant money.
you can see the escalation in, we're using a lot of ductile iron, copper water, just general construction inflation. And of course, we're projecting this out for another, 3 years to a potential midpoint of construction. I think we have 6% inflation. So it does inflate very quickly. It's kind of that saying that it's never going to get any cheaper. We've certainly seen that within the past probably 8 years. Costs have just gone up and up. So breaking that down a little bit, certainly a big number, $9 million, but what is that going to cost the end user? That's the important part. Our equivalent dwelling units we have for the entire system. This would include both Manlius and Sullivan, about 126.5. It's a little bit less than when we were looking at this a few years ago because now Sleepy Hollow is not a part of this project. They wouldn't be paying for it. So our units are less. Our total project costs have gone up. So your user cost is going to go up. We have an estimated debt service. That's your loan, more or less, to pay off the construction of about $800. We do have, and I'll talk about funding in a little bit here, a financing plan looking at low interest loans and kind of the grant programs that are available to us. Certainly we hope with maybe any stimulus, there could be additional grant funds. In addition to that, there would be an estimated Aqua water bill. That's based off water usage, and I'll have a slide next here which details that. But you're looking at a total estimated cost per unit being a single family home per year of about $1,200. I think last time we looked at this, we were in the $900 range. So costs have gone up. Just to break down the Aqua estimate a little bit further, they have a handful of fees. The first being water usage. That's based off of a rate table. We're estimating about 150 gallons per day per single family home. There's a base service fee for the meter, a Metropolitan Water Board fee. That board doesn't technically exist anymore, but Aqua's taking it over. The fee still applies. And then a hydrant maintenance fee. So that's kind of where we get to the $390 per year. I mentioned earlier that the water service would stop at the edge of the right-of-way. So the district residents would be required to connect to that on their own. We do put together an estimate. I know it's different for every single property. We're just trying to give kind of a average, for the average home that we have 60 feet off the road. We're assuming no rock excavation. Certainly rock is a concern in some areas of Salt Springs Road, but Aqua does have an installation fee for that meter. There's a service lateral installation. That would be through a private contractor or plumber. We've estimated a base cost of about $1,000 to get them mobilized to the site, and about $25 per foot for copper pipe installation. Meter pit, if necessary, that's for in Aqua systems. If you're more than, I believe, 250 feet off the road, they are required to have a meter pit, and then a pressure reducing valve, if necessary. That's on your private plumbing system, about $100. But for estimated connection costs, one-time connection cost of $2,700. So just touching on the intermunicipal agreement, we haven't established that yet, but the idea, the general concept is that all these project costs would equalize across the district, so that a unit in the town of Sullivan is paying the same as a unit in the town of Manlius, whether it's in that existing Skybridge district or the Salt Springs district. And we do that by taking the total project cost and we pretty much divide by the units in all the different districts. You come up with these percent shares, equivalent shares for that cost. And that's how everybody, through some accounting exercises, we get those costs equalized and everybody pays the same, because there is equal benefit to the system as a whole. Potential funding. I know there's a lot packed in on this slide, and funding seems to change, every year. This is the programs that, we've been successful with most recently. Of course, 2020, they didn't have these programs out there. We're certainly hopeful they will be published this year, or, stimulus funding or whatever it might be. The first being the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant. This was the grant that we did get awarded, that $3 million, a few years ago. It's actually the program we're using for Sleepy Hollow. That is 60% grant, which is fantastic. There's been discussion, particularly on the town of Manly side of things, of potential $2 million dormitory authority grant, through Assemblyman Sturkey's office. It's a little bit of a wild card right now. There is no actual award, but that is potential. These other two programs, this board is very familiar with them. We were just talking about this last one here on your last agenda item. There's the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, provides low interest loans. Right now, the town of Sullivan qualifies for a subsidized loan, current rate being 2.2% at 30 years. And then the town of Sullivan has the potential to apply for rural development funding. That's what you're using for your other water project there. Town of Manly does not qualify for that because the population is too large. But there could be some small grants, maybe on the $500,000 scale is what we've seen recently. And I believe their current market rate is 2.125%. Their loan term is a little bit longer. Again, we need to get through all the steps we talked about earlier with district formation, environmental review, and bond resolution before we can secure any of these funding programs for the project. So project schedule, I mentioned earlier, I kind of pick up where we left off on the steps to proceed. Where we are right now in April, we're having town of Manly take the lead initially on the environmental review. We are proposing that if this district were to get formed, it would get formed by Article 12. That's what I have highlighted through here. So just a little bit of background on the two different ways to form a district. Last time we tried Article 12A, which is, I kind of think of it as board action, where the board takes the first step, they pass a resolution saying, we're going to form this district, and then the residents have the ability to, petition and enforce a vote, which is what happened. Article 12 is kind of the reverse in my mind, where it's the district residents or potential district residents that sign a petition up front. And if that petition has enough signatories on it where it exceeds 51% of total assessed value of that proposed district, in essence, that district gets formed that way. There's a few steps for the town board, but it's through a petition, but in my mind, it's like having the vote up front. If you have the majority sign that petition, or total assessed value, then the district gets formed. So what we're working towards right now is getting those map plan reports together, such that, if the potential district residents are interested in signing that petition, they'll have that ability to do so. We don't have a very big district in the town of Sullivan to cut out Sleepy Hollow. We cut out Sky Ridge Road, based on their previous opposition. So it's really going to be up to residents along Salt Springs, if they're interested in proceeding with this or not. Assuming that they are, we'll have a lot of things we're going to try to get done quickly because we want to be ready for potential funding. So that would put us into May, where on the town of Manly side of things, bond resolution for their Sky Ridge existing district improvements. Hopefully we'll have a draft intermunicipal agreement to at least start to review. We're hoping by June, towards the end of June, that we can have these petitions complete. There will be one for town of Sullivan district as well as the town of Manlius district. It's a pretty aggressive time frame. I think that would give us a couple months to get the petitions in place and executed. That would move us towards July, where we look to, start that Article 12 process. There's a few steps for the board to do, I believe with the resolution and the public hearing, execute that IMA, and then hopefully we'll be, prepared for grant applications kind of mid to late summer. That's a very aggressive best case scenario. If all of that were to fall in place, theoretically, we could have our financing applications secured towards the end of the year. We could jump into an engineering design phase in 2022. 2023, you could start with construction on kind of the most aggressive schedule. Next steps, as I just talked through, got ahead of myself. So again, focus is to be shovel ready, for these grant applications, Article 12 petitions, environmental review, where we have town of Manley is taking the lead, and then the town of Sullivan board would have the ability to reaffirm their secret determination or object if there's an objection, intermunicipal agreement, bond resolutions, and grant applications.
Yeah, who's doing the resolutions? Who's gonna go door to door with the petitions? Who's doing that?
We're hoping to have a resident champion. I think we've identified some potential residents who are very much in favor of the project on the Manlius side. I believe we've identified a similar resident champion on Salt Springs side. I know you did such a good job with Sleepy Hollow. Just throw that out there, but. Am I allowed to bring petitions around? I mean, I would, but
Yeah.
I would certainly volunteer myself.
Yeah.
I am, trust me. I am.
There's a lot of memories out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot less than 500 home inspections. So
Yeah.
I think we can manage.
Some of those were fun.
They were. I know I went through a lot. I was just trying to be kind of quick on time so we could get to Sleepy Hollow. Before I get to Sleepy Hollow, do we have any questions from the board on this portion of the project?
I don't think so. Do we have anybody question from there?
Nope.
Okay.
All right.
On to Sleepy Hollow.
Few more slides. So Sleepy Hollow, of course, very long history tied into what I just talked about, but most recently, kind of our project schedule here. As you know, the project went out for public bid, construction bids last year. About this time, the bids came in higher than the budget. So we had to go back through the district formation process. Jeff brought around petitions, which was fantastic. We had to submit that to the New York State Comptroller's Office. Of course, that all happened right when COVID hit. I forget exactly when that application went in. I want to say late spring sometime. We got our approval from the comptroller October 26th of 2020. So immediately after that, in November, the town board issued a notice of award. The contractor got us their bonds and insurance, and we got the agreement signed. And we were able to issue a notice to proceed to Highlander Construction. They were the low bidder from last year. They agreed to hold their bid with the exception of, I think it's about a $5,000 cost increase for the pump station. So that notice to proceed is the contractor's official go-ahead. You can start with this project. The contract had written into it, again, this was written last year before COVID, but a 6-month construction period with like a 2-month in-field period to get the work done. That 6 months was because they're going to have a 3 to 4 month lead time to get that pump station built and delivered to the site, and they'll have their 2 months to do the work. So of course we issued their go-ahead in December, and then in accordance with the contract, Highlander requested. Excuse me, I'm getting my projects mixed up. Highlander is Foxville.
Yes.
W. Malone is Sleepy Hollow.
Malone is Sleepy Hollow or Highlander?
Malone is Sleepy Hollow.
You got me confused now.
A couple projects going on at the same time.
But it was, both of them held their price from last year to this year, which doesn't usually happen, and we're lucky that had that happen.
Yeah, they could have justified a lot more with wage rates increasing, with, the pipe that we just talked about increasing. I was very happy with WD alone, and their willingness to hold pretty much all their bid, with the exception of, that $5,000 for some of the pump station work control. So WD Malone requested a winter shutdown, which is very common, with our construction projects. Contract allowed them to, be in that shutdown period until April 5th. So our 6-month clock started on April 5th, which gives them, until October 2nd to complete the project. So we actually have a pre-construction meeting scheduled with WD Malone for this Friday. We've been working through the equipment, material submittal process, in their procurement on their end. We approved most of the submittals. We've gone back and forth a couple times on the pump station. I think we just got that back earlier this week. So things are, progressing according to the schedule that I thought we'd have, when we got going in December with that notice received. I think it's going to be more of a midsummer, mid-July, when the contractor is going to mobilize, and they're looking to really, show up, get all the work done, and then move on. So, that pushes towards a substantial completion date towards the end of September. Of course, by contract, it would be required by October 2nd. Again, a little tough to see on a PowerPoint here, but just to refresh everybody's memory, this is the construction plan at Salt Springs Road. Tobin Drive is down here. I think this is Route 5 that's kind of cut off. So this is where Aqua's system stops, and that's what we're going to tie into. We're going to bring the water up to a booster pump station, right by the cemetery there. Of course, obviously, this is a hill. That's why we need a booster pump station. That station is what is providing the system pressure throughout. So we're going to install water main along Salt Springs Road, and then turn down Sleepy Hollow, and we dead end before we come back to Route 5 there at that last drop. So our questions and answers. Thank you, Jeff, for sending those along ahead of time. Probably tough for folks to see on the video what this is saying, so I'll read each one aloud. First question being, what is the water pressure that we can expect at the point of entry of each house? So I just talked about that booster pump station. That's what's pressurizing that system. So we're going to be seeing about 90 PSI, pounds per square inch, at that pump discharge. The goal there is to, the reason it's 90 at the pump is because we want 35 PSI at the high point, that being about the intersection of Salt Springs and Sleepy Hollow. 35 PSI is your minimum water pressure. And then, we're going to go back down the hill on Sleepy Hollow and towards the northern end where it dead ends. It's going to get back up to about 85 PSI. And that's really the window you want to be in a water system, generally between 35 and 85. When you get above 85 PSI, we look to install pressure reducing valves. On the private plumbing systems at the house, you get above 120 PSI, which we're not going to, but just for reference, that's where it gets hard to turn valves and open hydrants, and you look to install pressure reducing valves on the main itself, but we don't have to worry about that, which is good. Kind of tying into that discussion, next question is, how much should we be concerned about the integrity of our in-house plumbing with a sudden increase in pressure? I can't speak to the integrity of everybody's in-house plumbing. What I can say though is the previous system was kind of reversed. The system that you have right now, I should say, where your well is right in this person's front yard. There's a booster pump system that's basically pumping it the opposite direction. So to hit, the system should be hitting about 35 PSI towards the top of the hill. Jeff, you're shaking your head saying no. How much pressure they got towards the top of the hill?
I know that's been one of the residents' complaints because they just don't have any pressure. So
Okay.
I guess it is,
Currently, they don't have.
currently they don't have.
They'll have pressure after this baby.
They will.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So what I was going to say was I thought the existing system was providing adequate pressure, whereas you have 35 PSI up here, and you're probably going to have about 85 PSI down there. sounds like the pressure might be increasing a little bit, from what we typically have. And that's where, if you are concerned about your internal plumbing, I would suggest installing one of those pressure reducing valves. That they don't cost all that much, little device, about $100, that you could install. We do not want to, we want to try to stay away from modifying people's internal plumbing. This being a public water system, we're trying to stay out, in the road and in the right of way, just some liability issues there. Next question, please present a house-by-house listing of which house will be having a water meter installed inside the residence, and which house will have a meter pit. So the hope is that everybody on the existing Sleepy Hollow Water District, which is Sleepy Hollow Road, they already have water services. It's been reported to us that they're copper. Backing up a little bit, if you guys remember, we want this system to meet Aqua's requirements, which is ductile iron water main and copper to the water meter. So if a existing house in Sleepy Hollow has a copper water service, and we can reconnect to that copper water service, we can then put the meter in the house. If we dig it up and we find, oh, it's not copper like we thought it was going to be, it's, I don't know, galvanized steel or HDP or whatever. At that point, we're going to install a meter pit because Aqua's meter can't be behind anything but copper. So we're going to put the meter pit in there at the edge of the right of way, install the meter there, reconnect it to whatever that non-copper material is. For the folks on the district extension, which is just the couple houses on Salt Springs Road, they do not currently have water, so they do not have water services. The thought here is that, just so that everybody's equal and everybody's getting a meter, we can put in a meter pit, at the right of way for those folks if they want it. Some folks might say, nope, don't want to see that in my yard. I'll run copper to my house. And
Taylor, I know there's at least one, maybe two that I've forgotten that will need those meter pits.
Okay.
So how are you going to go around and visit with those residents and make sure we get those numbers?
Yeah, it could be something that we do, during construction with the contractor when he's on site. The way we structured the bid, we had those meter pits as an added bid item, which we did award. The reason we set it up that way was so that we can be flexible. If we hit, not hit, but if we excavate down to connect into that water service and we see that it's not copper, we'll just make that necessary field change and get it installed there.
No, but yeah, we'll go over it another time. But I just want to know how we're going to go from.
If they have galvanized pipe, they probably should put it in the copper.
Well, there's other reasons too.
Okay.
Next question is, how will damage to property, lawns, driveways, mailboxes, plantings, etc. be handled? What's required of the contractor in their contract is return to the pre-construction condition is just generically how it's written. So let's say they accidentally hit a mailbox. Well, they got to give you a new mailbox that matches pretty much what you had before. Or if they had to dig through a asphalt driveway, they have to put back asphalt in that location. Gravel driveway, you're not going to get an asphalt driveway through the project.
And they have 1 year to come back and take care of that.
Yes,
Everything's clear, because that's usually a sticking point on these projects. It isn't put back like a week after they come through. Well, there's a reason for that. To let it settle down, to let the dirt calm down and settle maybe over the winter time, and then they come back the following spring and put the grass in and fill in all the spots that have sunk and everything else. And following year should be right back 100%.
You're absolutely right. There's a 1 year warranty on not just the restoration, but the project as a whole. So we know all too well the grass isn't always going to grow in. That first year they might have to come back to touch that up. When is the project start date? I think we talked about that on the previous slide. Technically, it has started. We're anticipating construction, mobilization to the site this summer. Was the overall plan, construction and timeline, as we just talked about. What is the anticipated start date and completion date of on-site construction? Again, we're projecting the start date in mid-July, completion by the end of September. If the homeowner has issues during construction, who is the contact person and how do we reach them? You can certainly reach out to Bartlett Judas, myself being Taylor Bochar. Alex Hess is another engineer that's been working with me. Our phone number, which you can find online, is 215-457-5200. When the new water main is across the road from residents to be served, how is the pipe crossing the roadway to be installed? Parentheses, jacking or open cut trench. So for the water services, we're going to be directionally drilling those services under the road. For the water main itself, I think we only have one road crossing on Salt Springs, and that would be open cut. What is the anticipated water pressure at the faucets? How much higher is that from what we now have? Most of the homes that are water pipes in pipe joints are at least 50 years old. High water pressure will cause many damaging leaks. What is being done to avoid this from happening? Again, we have this system designed to operate within that range of 35 to 85 psi. That's your standard pressure range that doesn't require a pressure reducing valves. It's required. Certainly if on the private side you are concerned about your internal plumbing, certainly would recommend that pressure reducing valve. If you're at 50 psi and still having leaks, you might want to call a plumber. What has been done in the construction documents to accommodate a situation where it is not possible to install a water meter inside the basement and immediately outside the foundation wall? A small meter pit installed flush with grade or below grade is the obvious solution. Has this been incorporated in the documents for 109 Sleepy Hollow Road and others as may require? This is kind of our discussion we just had. Yes, we have meter pits in the project at every house if needed. Again, the hope is that we don't need them for most of Sleepy Hollow Road. Maybe we need for 109, and then on Salt Springs, if those residents want them, we can get those installed. Who is responsible for having the water meter installed and installing? Because this is right now a town project and not Aqua system, the project, the town on behalf of the districts would be the ones that would install those water meters. Just like Aqua in an Aqua system is the one who would be installing their water meters.
On the Sleepy Hollow side.
On the Sleepy Hollow side, town is responsible for water meter installation. On the Salt Springs side, with our hopeful project, it would be Aqua.
We have money left. If we have money left over, I think we talked to Malone about installing them for us. Did we do that?
Good. Why hasn't construction started? I think we talked about this a little bit. A little bit of a misspelling here, but 2020 bid price, that was more than the budget, forced us to go to comptroller approval again. Then we had winter shutdown. Now we're in that equipment procurement process. 3 to 4 month lead time on that pump station brings us to July for a start date. What preparation for the project was done over the winter months, and is the lack of preparation delaying start of construction? I think this ties into the previous slide and previous question. I don't think there was any lack of preparation. The project is really progressed as anticipated since December of 2020 when we got that notice to proceed issue. Estimated date to start project and estimated completion date. I think we've talked about that a few times. Annualized cost per household updated to the most current estimate. So this is what we submitted to the comptroller and which was approved, where everybody signed a petition to reform that district last spring. The debt service, that's again the loan for the construction project, $799 per year per unit. Water use, which is estimated $244, and then operation and maintenance, which is going to be required by the town on behalf of the district, $211. So that brings us to a total of $1,306. Next question, is a generator factored into the plan in the event there is a power outage, since we are still relying on a pump station? So we do have a connection, like a quick connection, basically plug-in for a temporary generator that can be brought to the site. Certainly would have loved to have put in a permanent generator. We just didn't have the budget to be able to do that. Will any steps need to be taken to prepare our homes for this new water pressure? I need pressure regulator, new pipes, etc. This ties into, certainly recommend that pressure reducing valve if that's a concern of yours. That's probably your best bet. You can adjust those to change the pressure. Sheet C002, note 31 states only Aqua is allowed to operate existing valves in the system. To be clear, the existing Sleepy Hollow water system is not Aqua controlled, which is correct. Should this refer to the system operator? No, that note is referring to, we have to tie into Aqua's system. So what we're trying to tell the contractor is, hey, when you tie into Aqua's system, you need to go talk to Aqua because only they will be able to operate their valves. WE alone cannot do so. Sheet 002, note 35. Hope they have spotted any trees that are in the way. They have 1 week left to remove. We don't want to upset the bats. So what that's referring to is, this area is in the region of, I'm forgetting the actual name of the Indiana bat. Yes, thank you. How could I forget? So because of that, we cannot, as part of a public project, remove any trees between April 1st and October 31st. So I think we're past April 1st by now. The contractor has not removed any trees. Therefore, they're not planning to do so. They're certainly aware of this requirement.
Digest the bats.
There is a way to do it. It's pretty fun, actually. You gotta go, the night before you want to take a tree down, you gotta go do a survey, basically hang out by the tree, make sure no bats flew in.
Literally hang out? Upside down?
Close.
I wouldn't doubt that's a DEC regulation.
Yeah, it can be done. It's just very painful. Last question, sheet 005, table 1. Notes indicate water pit to be installed when water service to the house is not copper. Does this account for special circumstances? Somebody's really focused on 109 Sleepy Hollow Road, has copper water service, but due to access issues in the water line in the resident's basement, they worked with the engineers to have a meter pit installed instead. Straight read of the drawings doesn't seem to account for this. I don't know if there's similar instances at other residents. So again, we have those meter pits accounted for in the project. We certainly will have one installed for 109 Sleepy Hollow Road. I know it's long. I apologize, but that is all I have.
Thank
Hey,
you,
board,
Gary.
any questions that came across the board?
Thank you.
No,
No?
nope.
Certainly, Jeff, if any residents reach out, you can send them along to me. We'd be happy to talk to folks directly.
You want to get out of here, I'll send the prayer along with you. That's the board.
Thank you.
Okay, no questions? Very good, thank you, Taylor, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have our SRO agreement with the town, Manson County and Chittenden School. This is where we, out of our host community monies, pay for 3 school resource officers in cooperation with the Manson County Sheriff's Department. The county picks up half the cost. The town has said that we would pick up the other half of the cost. Our cost is $57,000. Worked it out with the county where we will take 2021's allocation and take it out of this year's host community money in November. Also, 2022's allocation out of November's money. That way we're paid a year ahead. And this agreement cancels if we do not get any host community money. I want to thank the school and the Sheriff's Department for being great partners on this. Mikey, the school superintendent, along with the school board, rave about this, how they're glad that we have the SROs in the school. And it's great to have them as partners and work together for, the community, for everybody. And I want to congratulate the schools on their state budget. They're also getting more money out of the state budget. I'm afraid behind the scenes, they'll cut them someplace else, so they'll wind up with the same amount of money. But hopefully they won't. I know this year's been tough. The school and their administration and everybody that works for the school has done a phenomenal job through 2020 to keep our kids in school, keep everybody going over there, shifting around and doing alternating days. And it hasn't been an easy job. And I think our hats should be off to the school district for, doing a job well done. They persevered, and it hasn't been easy. We've had some phone calls with the superintendent of the county, and but we've always worked through it because that's what we do, is we work together. And I want to congratulate Mike and his team, the teachers, and the administration on getting through this whole thing. So hopefully next year we'll be back to September. We'll be back to somewhat of normalcy. They're starting to open up a little bit, I believe, right, Jeff?
Well, we're hoping.
A little bit back to normal, so hopefully we can. So I will need a motion for to be able to sign this agreement. Motion by Mr. Ranger. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion?
As you know, John, I assume that I am a district employee. I'm going to abstain on this vote. I have in the past.
Okay, yeah, I guess so, we're gonna have a 3-0 vote here. I hope.
So
I
I'm
hope
just,
so too.
Yeah, okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, abstain. You need to call roll.
Does he have a direct conflict of interest?
I don't know that you have a conflict. If you feel like you shouldn't, then I expect that.
that's what
Sheriff feels
I'm
you
asking
I
for
mean,
legal
you
advice.
don't have a direct financial gain.
I do not.
So I'm comfortable if you do vote on it, but
If I can vote on it, I will vote on
If
it.
you were an SRO, that'd be different.
Okay.
You're not the SRO.
I wanted to make sure we are clear. Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay. So you're good with it?
Yes, I am. If Jeff votes, I'm very good.
John, Carrie, you guys are all okay? Good? Okay, any discussion? Okay, Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Bruskevich.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Carried. Okay. Okay, next we have approval of a purchase for our van for dog control. We're getting her a 2021 Transit Connect Ford van from Nye Ford for $25,500. It's smaller than the van that she has, but I think gas prices are going to go up, and this is the way that we should go. The old van is, I think, almost 10 years old. It's got 116 or 18,000 miles on it, so we just sell that on Auctions International. I'll need a motion for this.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion?
Do we have any estimated value of the old one at all? That's so we're,
I don't know what it is. Probably worth 3 or 4 grand, maybe.
yeah, just curious.
You want it for a carpet van?
No.
There's a lot of dog hair in the
No.
back. That'll go good on your carpet.
Oh, God. Okay.
This has got the bulkhead in it, so we don't have to retrofit it or anything like that. It'll work out all right. So with no more discussion, Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Bruskevich.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Carried. Okay, so we'll get that, we'll get the check, and we'll take care of that, get the check. Okay, we have our budget modifications, transferring $9,466 from A 7110.1801, Parks Director to Parks Laborer. This is an increase for one of the laborers at the park. Need a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bruskevich, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Burskevich.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
I'm an aye, carried. Okay, transferring $15,500 from A 1990.4 contingent to A 3510.2 dog control equipment. This is for the purchase of the 2021 Ford van from Ford. Need a motion for that, please.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Martin, I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Burskevich. Aye. Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
I'm an aye, carried. Okay, number 3, transferring $22,537.45 from A 3097 capital project GIGP, number 1383 to A 8030.460 for engineering fees. This is to pay the final payment due to Davis Walbridge for the project. I need a motion for that. That finally closes this project out.
I'll move it, John, but that was gonna be my discussion. Are we finally
We're
done?
finally done. This is the
Okay.
last payment. The EFC got us the money, so. Motion by Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ranger. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to thank Beth,
You're welcome.
Andy, Barton, Judas, and the board, and supervisors for all the efforts put forth in that project. Finally finished, like yesterday.
I was down there today and it doesn't look too bad. You know, I just hope that the
We,
rains a little bit, waters the thing.
I contacted the church especially because they've got the brunt of it, and they're gonna have a little get together and spruce it up, so we'll, clean it up. And maybe ELCO or somebody will help me do some of the rest. If you're lucky.
Walker Tree Service went down in the spring too, and they did a bunch of cleanup.
Good,
I don't know if that was part of their contract or not, but.
appreciate it.
Okay, no further discussion. Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Burskevich.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
I'm an aye, carried. Okay, we have firefighter application, 1, Teresa Hare, the North Shenango Fire Department. Need a motion, please?
Blanket.
Motion by Mr. Ranger, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Burskevich. Any discussion? Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Burskevich.
Aye.
I'm an aye, carried. Okay. The AUD is done and in. I want to thank Beth and her staff for doing a good job on that. It's not been the easiest this year. Here is, brought some of it out here, a ton of new regulations for reporting from the state. State being as nice as they are, decided to pull that stunt partway through the AUD. So she had a lot of other hoops to jump through, and she got it in okay, and we want to thank her for her hard work and staff.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Along with that, BLCO is having their Earth Day, and they're having an extended virtual celebration Thursday, August 22nd to Saturday, April 24th. They're asking that people bring a garbage bag. Landing Hardware is graciously offered to donate trash bags starting Wednesday, April 21st through Friday. On Saturday at 9, we'll have a station set up, Bridgeport Firehouse Station, with trash bags and morning goodies to get you started. Please wear your mask in confined areas and keep social distancing. Town of Sullivan Highway Department will provide dumpster to the back parking lot of Fire Station 1. Please bring your filled bags to the firehouse. If you can't, please call us at 633-0130 and leave a description of where you need a pickup, and we'll get there. And in parentheses, please, folks, resist the urge to clean out your personal property and don't abuse the good intentions of the town highway department in the town. No tires or electronics in the dumpster, and leave whatever you have neatly on the outside. It means no dishwashers, dryers, couches, any of that stuff. So, leaves and brush, right?
Yep, and again, the tires and electronics are a big thing. If you do find them, just put them on the outside of the dumpster, we'll take care of it. Madison County does not appreciate those in the dumpster.
Because at the dump landfill, we have to have somebody pick it all out. It's not fun, so. Project Pride work date will be set for April 17th, 2020. That's all they had. Their summer concert series, BLCO summer concert series, July 5th will be the Fab Cats. July 12th will be Fritz's Polka Band. July 19th will be Thunder Canyon, and July 26th will be TJ Sacco. So they will see you in July. Also, see if I get any questions on it? No. Also, we're working on a canal corridor grant through Madison County Planning. Jamie Kwauzik, she's the kind of the leader of the same team that put together the grant for the Reimagine the Canals in Canastota, who beat out worldwide competition, literally. There was applicants from Europe, and Madison County won with their submission. She's in charge of the canal corridor down through here and planning, and they have a plan, and they want to get this approved. We won't do it tonight, and they'll be able to put in for some grant money. There's increased grant money for this, and she sent it over to me today, and I'll be reporting on that later on. Okay, our great state of New York budget has been passed. Budget rejected the governor's proposed cuts to aim and restore the 5%, well, actually the 20%, and then the 5% for this fiscal year. Transportation funding, CHIP save will be enhanced for the first time in 8 years, increasing by $100 million or 23%, from $438 million to $538 million. Statewide, that's really not a big increase, but we'll take anything we can get at this point. Extreme winter recovery funding of $65 million will be fully restored, and another $35 million added to that for a total of $100 million. Pave New York, annual allocation of $100 million will be increased to $150 million. Local touring routes, a new program of aid is created and funded at $100 million. The aid will be distributed to 87 cities, villages, and towns in which there are state and or federal route miles for which such municipality has capital maintenance responsibility. Eligible capital costs include the cost of construction and repair of highways, bridges, highway, railroad crossings, and other transportation facilities for projects with a service life of 10 years or more. We're certainly thankful for the increases, but 6 months ago, we were looking at a deficit of $18 billion, and our governor was asking the federal government to make him whole, and he got made whole, and all of a sudden they're popping up with all this extra money. I don't understand how this works. Water sewer infrastructure funding, the budget includes an additional $500 million for drinking water and wastewater infrastructure funding, similar to what was proposed in the executive budget. Also, the police reform collaborative is in the budget. Appointment of a monitor would be in addition to the potential withholding of up to 50% of state and federal aid until such time the certification is received. They're looking to certify anybody who has a police agency at the state level. There'll also be a certification process for hiring police officers, which I talked to a environmental officer today, and he's a young man, and we thank him for his service. But I don't think you're going to see people picking law enforcement or environmental law enforcement or any of that as a career with their hands the way that they're being tied today, not only in the state but throughout the country. They have a Restore Mother Nature Environmental Bond Act originally scheduled to be on the statewide ballot in November. This $3 billion bond act will now go before the voters on November 2022. If approved, this initiative would make significant investments across the state to combat climate change, reduce flood risk, invest in resilient infrastructure, and revitalize critical fish and wildlife habitats. Now, that whole paragraph to me says nothing but regulation. So, broadband accessibility and affordability, there's money in the state budget for that. Regional Economic Development Councils provides another $100 million for another round of downtown revitalization and another round of REDC awards totaling $750 million will target assistance to impacted industries and allow for job creation. There's an early retirement incentive for New York City only, not the rest of the state. So if you're part of the rest of the state, I guess you're out of luck. So that is the state budget. Andy, you want to add anything to the state budget?
No, I did supposedly get an increase. I don't know what those numbers are yet, but, and the 20% that they withheld last year, we were fortunate enough to get it, but most municipalities did not. They are reinstating that. I believe that was like 91 million. So we had the towns and cities, counties that had that 20% hole last year. We'll have a chance to get it back this year. So looking forward to those increases.
Okay, do you have anything else you want to add? Okay. All right, and I have the NICOM, or the NISAC. That was the reading from the NICOM newsletter. NISAC at 3:30 this afternoon put out a little blurb of just some of their highlights. 100 million additional CHIPS funding, 65 million extreme weather, 50 million paid New York, 20 million in additional capital funding, and 2 million in additional operating aid for local boards and elections. 2.5 million for 18B family court attorney representation, 7.5 million for assisted outpatient treatment, restoration of BLT aid, which is 9.3 million, restoration of 3.75 million for jail-based substance abuse treatment, additional 5 million in funding, restoration and increase in Article 6 public health funding, additional 5.5 million for the interoperable communications capital projects, inclusion of the expansion of the zero emission rebate program for municipalities, and 385 million for the state municipal facilities. That's all pretty much county stuff. One thing we do have to talk about tonight, is John, you're probably going to have to start working on this. We have to talk about the Marijuana Act that was just passed at the state, at the state level. There is a local opt-out, and you can either opt out similar to what we do for water districts or sewer districts, and then somebody can, it's a permissive referendum, then somebody can challenge it with so many signatures. My suggestion is that we just put it on the ballot for this fall, because it has to be done by December 31st, 2021. So I say that we put it on the budget or on the ballot here at the local level and let the people in the community decide whether they want to opt in or opt out of this. Towns, cities, and villages can opt out of allowing retail dispensaries and or on-site consumption by way of local law, subject to permissive referendum. Towns, cities, and villages have until December 31st, 2021, or 9 months after the effective date of this legislation, whichever is later, to adopt a local law requesting the Cannabis Control Board prohibit the establishment of retail dispensaries and or non-site consumption within their jurisdiction. Because the local law is subject to permissive referendum, voters who oppose the law will have the opportunity to gather enough signatures to put the measure on the ballot and potentially override the decision of the town, city, or village government. Town laws will apply to only the area of the town outside of any village within the town. No local law can be adopted to prohibit these establishments after December 31st, 2021, or 9 months after the effective date of the legislation, whichever is later. However, localities can pass a local law to repeal a previously adopted prohibition after this date. Does anybody have any questions concerning this? Do you want to have John start drawing up the paperwork to get this onto the ballot
Yeah, I'd
for
like
people
to
to
see.
decide?
Have you had any other time, have you had started conversations, John, with any?
Just came out, you guys,
Just
the
came
first
out.
one, so
Nice.
glad you're beginning to address it.
We're ahead of the ball.
I sent out an email blast a couple days ago on this subject for everybody to look at.
So I think I'll make the motion to have our town attorney start the process for putting this on to the ballot for the November election to allow for, the marijuana law.
You're saying you want to do it as a mandatory referendum versus remember the way that reads, that you opt out, you vote to opt out.
Yeah, but I don't want
You
to,
wanna
I
go
don't
straight
think,
to
I think it
mandatory?
should go
Okay,
straight to the people.
all right, I just want to, I'm going to take a look at that, what it says about mandatory.
Do you guys think that's good that way? That way, we're not making the decision to opt out, we're not making the decision to opt in. I think it's an issue that the people of the town should decide for themselves.
Well, you have to do, I think you're going to have to do it that way, but
Okay.
let me research
All right.
that, because everything I've read so far does not address that scenario. But normally, if something's subject to a permissive referendum, you can make it mandatory, so I'll look at that.
So,
Well,
I have a motion, do we have a second?
You're going to direct me to go ahead and look into
Yeah,
that.
so I have that
I'll
second.
second that.
Okay.
Yes.
Supervisor made the motion, seconded by Jeff Martin. Is there any other discussion on this?
I just think there's gonna be a lot of information that's gonna be able to come out too,
Yes.
on what the consequences are either way, so.
There's impacts from the county to the town, to the villages and the city, because if we opt out, we're not gonna get any revenue from the sharing of the revenue with the county. I'm not even sure the county's gonna pass this. I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna go. We're gonna have that discussion next week.
I'll start that research, and then the jury vote, have a motion to second.
Nope, we did not. Now, every time we discuss this, I want to have John Denver singing Rocky Mountain High. before we discuss it, so. All right. Mr. Ranger.
Aye.
Mr. Briskevich. Aye. Mr. Martin.
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Yeah.
Carried. Okay. I guess we discussed everything we need to discuss. Yes, do we have questions?
Kevin Curtis raised his hand.
Okay, we have questions on the pickleball.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me, fellas?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I feel like this is a small potatoes issue since you're dealing with water district consolidation and marijuana legalization issues and sewer district consolidation. I served on the Casanova Town Board for a while, and those are complicated things. No matter how efficiently you do it, somebody objects. Those are challenges. Bless you all for serving. Anyways, the pickleball issues. In a nutshell, what I'm asking the town board to please consider in conjunction with the Parks Board is to maintain resident and non-resident access on an equal opportunity basis for the Sullivan Park courts. It's been that way through the past year as pickleball has gotten more and more popular, and there's been adequate playing time for everybody. Lori Davis has done a magnificent job of scheduling reservations, so groups that are kind of open, like the group I play with, we'll play with anybody who shows up. If there's a lot of people, we play shorter games, but everybody's kind of welcome. And then there's some groups that prefer to play just with their own folks, and that's understandable. And both have worked pretty well together there. In central New York, there's 11 outdoor public facilities right now, and none of them have different access rules based on resident and non-resident. I played at a lot of these, as do pickleball enthusiasts. We play with other people in other areas. Nobody ever asks if you're a resident or not. In fact, my wife and I have grandchildren out of state, and it's the same thing there. I've never been asked at a public court whether I'm a resident or not a resident. So there was some talk of restricting courts and having some courts specifically for residents and some for non-residents. And my own feeling is that also presents a lot of questions. If a non-resident plays with a resident on a residence court, is that allowed? Can another resident come and ask a non-resident to leave because it's a resident priority court, or vice versa? You can get the idea. And going down that road, who polices, who enforces, how's it checked on? I personally feel it's sort of a solution in search of a problem, because last year the play was great at Sullivan. The only time anybody ever came while I was there playing with a group that wanted to play tennis, we offered a court and they decided, no, they'd rather go to the high school. The courts are great there. And we had, I think at that point there were 10 or 11 people sharing 2 courts, taking turns. So that's the long and short of it. Do you gentlemen have any questions for me on this? I was a Chittenango resident for 5 years, had both my kids there, owned a house on Madison Street. So I've contributed a little bit to the tax base of Sullivan and Chittenango, but was transferred out of the area due to a job and came back, ended up in Cazenovia.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Curtis, but I think you are 100% correct. We're not going to take up the issue. We're going to wait till next week till our park board meets, and then we're going to wait for a recommendation from our park board. John, you got anything you want to add to that at all?
Yes. First of all, it was a beautiful day today. I hope that everybody was enjoying our parks and the facilities that we provide our residents and taxpayers. I think with COVID and the nice weather and the facilities, the parks have been used more this year than they have in the past. And what we're feeling is a demand for use of not only the tennis courts for pickleball, which I'm not too sure if everybody understands what that is. It's a sport that's played on tennis courts similar to racquetball, handball, whatever you might want to say. But the issue really is that the demand for the facilities has gone up, and we haven't really discussed fully the demands that are on the parks now. And I think what John's referring to is we're going to take this up with our park board and review not only our tennis court facilities, but all our facilities. We have Frisbee golf now. We have soccer fields. And we want to make sure that our taxpayers and town residents are provided facilities that we promise them and what they're paid for. So bottom line of my little talk here is that we're going to sit down and we're going to review it with the existing park board, which is comprised of town residents, have them come up with some solutions, have those solutions reviewed with the town board, and then see if it's appropriate for us to take some action.
Okay, that sounds very reasonable. The only thing I would add is bear in mind, I don't think anyone has ever been at the courts taking counts for how often they were used. Very often there were empty courts. And again, with the reservation system, which is very useful and tends to spread out play, there was plenty of empty time. I mean, I was there often enough to tell you if it was ever crowded or a problem, and I truly didn't see that. The other issue is you consider resident and non-resident use of any public park facility. There is some case law on how far that can or can't go and whether it gets challenged, because most courts, even if they're local, have had some taxpayer contribution beyond the local community. And that's why generally you don't see anywhere in my experience where there is a separate access for resident and non-resident. It's a difficult thing to legally enforce. And I leave that to John Lange to give you advice on that, but there is some law specific to New York case law.
And Mr. Curtis, Jeff Martin, understand what you're saying. Yeah, here we are, we're talking about pickleball.
I know, it seems silly.
You're a non-resident, number one.
Right.
Two, you're in Casanova, and I would love to go up there and launch my boat out of your park, but that's probably not gonna happen. So we would just, I think your point is correct. As long as no one's using the facility, we don't usually have any issues. We just want to make sure, I'm sure the park board will review this, that our residents get the opportunity to use the facilities that we support heavily.
Understand completely, and if they were maximized, I think it might be a different issue. My understanding is you can launch your boat here now. There used to be a day when you couldn't. Those days are past. You can walk in with your kayak and go right out.
Perfect.
Not a problem. And gentlemen, as a Casanova resident, my wife and I have worked with our town board and our village board. We would like to get 4 courts built here. We volunteered to donate $1,000 to a feasibility study. We would help with the funding if we can get the ball rolling on that. So yes, I'm aware that if this is something important and useful in our community, we should have courts here too. We're working on it. The wheels.
Mr. Curtis, that I'm sure that they will appreciate the $1,000 donation, but just to rehab our 4 courts in Sullivan Park 2 years ago was $145,000 that came out of the taxpayer's pocket. So.
Oh yeah, the construction's another thing, correct? And we would help with that. It's just where they could put the courts and whether in the town or the village, and I leave that to our.
I'm not gonna. The board's putting them down.
What was that?
I missed that.
Miscommunication.
No. Who? Somebody had something to say?
I think they hit the unmute button on accident.
No. All right, so the park board's gonna review it, and when do you guys meet? Next week, John?
It's gonna be on the 26th.
Okay, so for our first meeting in May, we'll have some kind of recommendation hopefully out of the park boards.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.
Anybody else have anything?
There's one more person. Dave has a question.
Who does?
Dave Sobo.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Just a quick follow-up to Kevin's. I just want to back him up. I am a resident, and with the football, and I do play there. We're very welcoming to everybody, and I just wanted to back up what he said. And anybody can come and play. We utilize the facility really nicely. That's about it. He set up very much better than I can, but I just want to back him up as a resident.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you for your time.
that's it.
Now
we got somebody else waving their hand.
Yep. Let me unmute her.
Hi, I'm Sue Daly. I also am a resident and also play on the pickleball courts. The issue that the resident pickleball players have is the time when we are sharing the courts, even with reservations, the number of players that arrive to the courts because our courts are being advertised on a website. And so we often will get 25 players for 2 courts for their group when we have a court going. And we have had residents come up to play tennis, for example, that were told by another group that they could go to Chapman Park. And at one point, it was kids from the high school. So I think, it just needs a little better. It needs a little better trafficking, I guess. So as a resident, I just wanted to chime in.
That's what we're gonna ask the park board to do, and make sure that we give the Sullivan residents priority or a leg up. So thank you very much for your input.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, very good on the pickleball. Okay, Gary, you got something?
Just quickly, when we were doing the Bridgeport Speechscape, I was learning a little bit about grants and writing grants, applying for grant monies, and obviously see a lot of conversation now with grant monies coming out, and maybe in the near future, we'll be able to take advantage of some of that grant monies and some projects. One of the critical things I'm glad that Taylor stayed is the comprehensive plan, which I'm sure you're very aware of. Ours was adopted in 2006, and a lot of the data is from the 90s and 2000 era. So I don't know how long this is valid. How long usually does a comprehensive plan last?
I don't know if there's any set rules, but typically it's like every 10 years we look at it.
Yeah, the data have it updated.
Yeah, so I just thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention.
We can have it updated.
Because when they do the grant writing and then apply for the grant, you correct me if I'm saying something incorrectly, one of the first things they look at is the comprehensive plan. And ours is kind of just a little bit behind from 2006 with projects that you've already.
It should be updated. Done. There's a lot of, with USDA, they don't want to look at you without a comprehensive plan, and going back to the AUD, there's a lot of, well, I can't say a lot, there is some municipalities that don't have their AUD done, and USDA said they will not even talk to you without an AUD done.
It's like I'm saying, everybody has everyone's attention, that's all.
No, I think we probably should look at, who did that, John?
We gotta-
Houlihan did that, didn't he?
No, a company out of Troy did it. We got a grant. We got a grant to do it. So the residents paid $20,000. We got a $20,000 grant, and it was a company out of Troy.
I wonder how much it cost to just update it.
I don't know. We had to get a grant at the time. We had no funds available.
We'll look
So,
at that.
yeah, we'll take a look. Pardon me?
I was just saying.
Yeah, this gets a little outside of my area.
Yeah, there was a
But-
CDBG sort of.
Yeah, Ken Knutson's the guy, that's his group now.
Okay, I'll talk to
Planning.
Yeah, it was a CDBG, and that's how we got it done through that, and it's a whole different take on, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I looked at it today.
Well, we've used that as a blueprint since I got it.
Yeah. I looked at it quickly today, and there would be some real significant updates, especially if we try to go towards the sewer district and the rest of the Lake Fork, Bridgeport area.
I've got a meeting next week on that.
And if it's in there, you know what I mean, that
Yeah.
we've already accomplished, you know.
Oh, that end, yeah.
Yeah, how far we've gotten,
Yeah.
and, you know, what improvements that did as far as for discharge into the lake and things like that. I think that would go a long way, because it looks to me like in the near, you know, the next couple of years, it's probably going to be to our best advantage to try to apply for grant monies in that area.
How are we coming on the Hero Water District and the rest of the sewer district? We're looking at the extension, Bridgeport extension.
Yep, for Bridgeport extension and for Whitelaw there, you know, we have the engineer reports in place. We updated them last year, so the next step is that district formation. A lot of similar areas of what we were just talking about with Salt Spring. So we want to get the districts formed, secret bond resolution, and you know, with the comp plan that references them, as Kerry said, every grant application these days, they always ask, is your project identified in the plan? It really helps when you can check that box and follow that.
All right, so what is our next step for the Bridgeport extension?
You know what, I think last we talked about it, John, we were thinking for both those projects, we were hoping.
That's why you're young and you can remember.
We were hoping to have some type of public information meeting.
Yes.
You know, whether, we were talking a little bit about, hey, maybe we wait till it gets warmer, we can try to do something outside, obviously, you know, COVID compliant. Or we could try to do some type of virtual thing. I think that's what we haven't done since we did that engineering report, is community engagement.
Okay, maybe we put something together. You know, how soon do you think we should have all this done in order to catch up on this load of money coming through?
Yeah, I think if we started right now with that district formation process and everything else, you'd be at best case done by the end of the year, so that you can kind of get set up for grant applications in 2022. And maybe a comp plan update could go online.
Maybe we should go street to street like we did last year up at Whisper Ridge. Identify somebody, just sit in their driveway, have 20, 30 people show up, 15, 20 people, bring their lawn chairs, sit down and go over the plan, give them some fact sheets and let them talk about it, and then we'll put it up, let them vote on it.
You could even spread them out a little bit. Yeah.
Or, yeah, we could do that. We could have it in Chapman Park one night. Yeah.
On the pickleball court.
Not on the pickleball court, no.
You want us to put together, a little, like a draft mailer, kind of a notice, hey, come to Kevin Park on this date, and a fact sheet?
Yeah, let's get together on that and we'll figure something out, because we certainly don't want 600 people showing up at Chapman Park on the same night,
Maybe we can do it a couple.
50 or
streets at a
60,
time,
do it
yeah.
2 or 3 nights, different nights, And just give the presentation and tell them, hey, it's in your hands, we've done all the preliminary work, there is grant funding out there. If we can get the grants, we'll go through, but if not, we're just we'll keep trying. Okay, everybody good with that? Does anybody else have anything for tonight? Okay, we have an executive session for anything, do we? Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second. Second by Mr.